Everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at the DRF Friday race of the day, which comes at Keeneland in Lexington, Kentucky. Race 9 is the Grade 2 Valley View, this one going the 1 mile distance for the 3-year-old fillies on the grass course, and this race is oversubscribed. Only 12 will get to participate. There are a few AEs in this field. We could take a look at the field of runners, and fairly wide open affair, Mike. The number 2, Play With Fire, is the favorite on the morning line, understandably going out for popular connections. Chad Brown, Flavia Pratt. She has a horse who is still looking for her first victory since switching into the Chad Brown stable, but I could see her getting a good trip in here.
Yeah, we'll see if she can work out the right kind of a trip. Good post for her. She does have enough tactical speed, I think, for Pratt to just place her wherever he needs to place her in this race. I mean, she doesn't, she really lacks that standout race to this point, David. I don't think she's a standout in this field, and you might be asked to take a short price on her too.
Looks like her main rival on paper could be the number 6 Classic Q. We'll see if there's such a disparity in price between these two as the morning line suggests, because Classic Q actually has defeated Play With Fire before and looks like a strong contender based on her prior form going longer. She is stretching back out in this race, and I think Classic Q's chances are going to depend heavily on how the pace of this race plays out. And let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Valley View, because, Mike, it was kind of interesting. I know we had some discussions about this horse over the summertime, and I know you sort of came around to her slowly but surely. And I know Mark Cassidy, who was watching one of our videos, was telling, I think it was Dave Grenning or Mike Welsh at the time, that he wanted to rate her in a couple of races where she just almost had to go to the front end. And he watched our video, looked at the pace projector, and realized, I probably do have to send this horse to the lead because she's got so much tactical speed. Why take it away from her? Well, they rated her last time going shorter, but in this race, stretching back out to the mile, she probably will find herself in front.
Yeah, her speed is a big advantage for her. And it also just feels like, I mean, I understand the inclination to turn her back to 6.5 and shoot for that big purse last time at Kentucky Downs. This is probably her best distance.
And I imagine the other horse that's stretching back out in distance here to beat the number 9, she could be a wild card with regard to the pace because she is a horse who has shown some more speed overseas. We'll get to her in just a little bit. With this being the DRF Friday race of the day, you can get free pass performances for this race just like you can for every single race of the day. Just go to that race of the day page at DRF.com. And you can get free Timeform US, Formulator, and Classic pass performances for each and every race of the day. Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1, Admit, who switched over to turf relatively late in her career, I think at her 8th start of her career, and she's run just fine on the turf, especially in a couple of grade 3s most recently. But Mike, I thought she got a pretty good trip last time in the Dueling Grounds Oaks and just couldn't quite finish that race off.
Yeah, I mean, she ran fine in the 2 stakes races since the win 3 starts back. I just don't think she had real excuses either time. If you wanted to say that dropping back to a mile here is going to help her, that's fine. I just don't really think that she's good enough to beat these horses.
Up next is that morning line favorite, the number 2, Play With Fire. Let's take a look at the replay of her most recent start in the Lake Placid, where she was defeated by another horse that's going to line up against her in this race, Mayday Ready. That's the one who's highlighted on the lead here. Play With Fire is the one that's highlighted second in that yellow cap, following the winner through along the inside. And like a couple things working against Play With Fire this day, Mayday Ready got to just control things on the front end. And also Play With Fire had to sort of awkwardly steady heading into the far turn, which maybe cost her the momentum that was needed to win the race.
Yeah, she ran really well in there and was probably best in the race. Anybody can go back, watch the full replay. We just showed you the stretch run. Watch the full replay and draw your own conclusions. In my opinion, that was one of the 5 worst rides of the meet that Pratt gave this horse. This horse broke to the front in that race. They were walking, and for some reason, he just dragged her back and wound up stuck behind horses. He got this horse beat last time. It happens. She still ran really, really well in there, I thought. Her other races, I personally think they're better than they may look on paper, but I guess that, can be discussed, and it should be discussed considering that she's 2-1 on the morning line, because I don't think you want to try to dress her up too much. I think she's good, David. I think she was best last time, and I think she's the horse to beat right back.
Yeah, I was left a little cold by her race 2 back in the Wild Applause, where I thought it really set up well for her, and she had dead aim at Classic Q and couldn't get by her. We'll see if it's different now in the fall of her 3-year-old season. The number 3, Ramsey Pond, kind of a difficult one to assess because we saw her early in the year at Gulfstream and then once at Keeneland, and she did win over this course, actually a good turf course at Keeneland back in April with a big late run. That was a fast pace that set her up that day. Mike, I didn't love her Gulfstream Park races going back to last winter, but she did show some minor improvement off the layoff at Kentucky Downs last time, notably beating a field of older horses.
Yeah, I don't know, how much credit to give her for the Kentucky Downs race, because those races are just really hard to evaluate. But she did at least carry her form forward into that race off of a little bit of a layoff too. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I wasn't thrilled with her form at Gulfstream earlier this year, but she was running pretty well against some really nice competition. The win 2 starts back. I do give her extra credit for having a win over this turf course, but as you've already sort of alluded to, she had a great setup in that race. They were flying early.
The number 4, Vixen, is a horse who actually beat Ramsey Pond a couple of times at Gulfstream last winter. She hasn't necessarily progressed a whole lot since then. She was playing second fiddle to her stablemate Nitrogen through a couple of graded stakes in Kentucky earlier this year. She's now coming off a brief freshening into this, Mike, and I wonder what you make of the fact that Mark Casse even deemed to enter her in the Raven Run on dirt last week, obviously scratched out of that race. She'll run here instead.
Yeah, I didn't like that they were taking a look at dirt. I thought it was maybe a bad sign, but they didn't run her there. They waited for this race. So, we'll see. I should probably get over this, David, but I'm still holding the loss in the Natalma last year as a 2-year-old against her, just because I thought that was a good spot. I really liked her first 2 starts, and I just thought that she was going to win the Natalma, and I thought she had every chance to win the Natalma, and she didn't. And if I'm being honest, I'm not sure how much better she's gotten since that. I mean, her form earlier this year was fine. It wasn't great. Maybe you'll see a little bit of a move forward from her here, but I didn't want to bet her in this race.
A horse who's going to be a big price in this race is the number 5, Sturgeon Moon, who's making her turf debut here. Tough spot to try a new surface for the first time. And Mike, looking through the pedigree, I don't see a whole lot of evidence that she's supposed to be a lot better on grass.
Yeah, me either. Didn't like her pedigree. Not really sure what the idea here is to run her in this race, because I just don't expect her to move up.
The number 6, Classic Q, is a horse who has had success going this distance in the past. She wired a field going the mile in the Wild Applause at Saratoga this summer, like we said earlier, beating Play with Fire that day. And we'll take a look at her race 2 back in the Lake George, where she just got nailed at the end by Daisy Flyer, who was a price on this occasion. But Mike, I think Classic Q probably ran the best race here, because this was an honest pace, going a distance that probably is maybe a 16th of a mile longer than what she really prefers. And you could see in the very last 16th of a mile, she gets a little leg weary, swarmed by the closers, but she really did come into good form this summer. And like we said earlier, they tried to turn her back at Kentucky Downs last time, and I did not think that trip worked out for her, because she was held up in traffic for a very long time, and it seemed like she had a lot more run than she was able to give that day.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny too, because when I watched that race, she had so much speed that I really didn't think she'd be affected that much by turning back to 6.5. But man, she just wound up way back in the pack early, and it just wasn't an ideal trip for her. I understand why they did that. It's a $2 million race, and you might as well take a shot at it. But again, I just feel like the mile's her best distance. I agree wholeheartedly with your take on the Lake George 2-back. She was best in there, even though she didn't win. And her overall form and the pace projector that we looked at earlier, it just makes her, I think it makes her really, really tough in here.
The number 7, is Something About Her, is a horse coming off a couple of stakes placings in her last 2 starts for Brendan Walsh. And I think you do want to pay attention to everything Brendan Walsh has been sending out at this Keeneland meet, because he's having a great meet so far. And Mike, this horse has faced some decent company. Candy Quest, who beat her 2-back, has been in very good form recently for Mark Casse, and she was a 3rd to Evershed last time. It was 2nd in that Old Dominion Oak. She's a horse that ran well at Saratoga previously. However, watching that last start at Colonial, I did feel like she hung a little bit at the end.
Me too. I don't really see excuses for either of our last 2 races. And she ran fine both times. I just didn't see real excuses for her. And I'm not sure that if she just shows up here and runs, those kinds of races against this field, I'm just not sure that it makes her a winner in this race. If you wanted to use her, maybe underneath, if she's a fair price, I guess I wouldn't argue too hard with it, David. To be honest, I want to like her races more. Even her prior turf races as a 2-year-old, just didn't really like them that much.
The number 8, Raining Flowers, has that 189 buyer speed figure that kind of jumps off the page of her PPs that would make her a contender in here, Mike, but that was earned in the Lake George behind Classic Q. And as we talked about, I just thought Classic Q ran way better than Raining Flowers in that race, given the way the pace set up and the fact that Raining Flowers just hugged the rail every step of the way. And since then, she's taken some subtle steps backward. Maybe she didn't want to go that far at Kentucky Downs last time, but it just never looked like she had much run in there.
I agree. I feel like this is one where I'm just going to have to wait and see if the morning line's even close to right. Because if she's 20-1, I'll just try to find a way to use her. The Lake George, your point's well taken. It's the best race that she's run this year. And she just kind of had a really great setup in there and ran late. I guess the flip side of that is maybe she's dirtied up in her 2 races since then, because you have the Kentucky Downs race going longer last time, which is easy to give her a pass for. The Lake Placid 2-back where they were just strolling on the lead in front of her, and she's, on the outside all the way around the track. Maybe that's not as poor a performance as it looks.
Going to be interested to see what price the number 9 to beat goes off at in this race, making her first start off the trainer switch to Brad Cox for Juddmonte. She's a horse who started her career overseas for trainer Rafe Beckett, came here for that barn, ran the Music City at Kentucky Downs last time, actually finished ahead of Classic Q in that race after getting a little bit better forward position in there. Brad Cox in his first start for the new barn, though, Mike, is going to take the blinkers off. That's an interesting move for a filly who did show a lot of early speed overseas, didn't translate at Kentucky Downs last time, but maybe she can show it stretching out here.
Yeah, I expect her to be forward at least. I mean, her major win, the Group 3 win there, 2 back in her final start before they shipped her over. She just sort of made the lead in there. They didn't go fast. And she just managed to hang on for a share there. She caught a very lucky bob to get a share of that win there with her stablemate. I just thought that was an okay performance. She did show in some of her earlier races, David, that they could rate her into the pocket and she would still run. So she has that kind of tactical speed going for her. I don't know. I didn't think that she ran that well in the Music City last time. And if I'm being honest, wasn't thrilled with her form overseas. I thought it was fine. Didn't think it was great. I wouldn't take a short price on her.
For what it's worth, Brad Cox, first off a trainer switch on turf over 5 years, just 5 for 33 with a $1.08 ROI. So not the positive stats you might expect with that move for this barn. The number 10 Stormy Paradise, 50-1 on the morning line. Mike, any way to make a case for this 2-time turf winner at Belterra?
I did not see it. Although, listen, she's stretching out from a bunch of 5 furlong races. Maybe she's on the lead.
The number 11, Totally Justified, has definitely had an up and down 2025 season. It's mostly been down because really her only race that would make her competitive here was when she was 5th in that Saratoga Oaks. I shouldn't say that. She ran well in the Regret 4 back at Churchill as well. But definitely it's been a little bit of an off and on pattern for Totally Justified so far this season. I will say, Mike, watching her last race at Kentucky Downs, I don't know what the plan was with Irad Ortiz on board that day. I mean, she did break from an outside post position, but he never showed any intent to save an inch of ground on her. She was just 4 wide around the turns with no cover every step of the way. And yes, she is a forward horse, but that was not the kind of trip that's going to be successful really in any turf race run anywhere. So I want to give her a pass for that race. And while I had thought earlier on that more distance was really going to work for her, it hasn't exactly played out that way in her performances. And maybe turning back to the mile could be beneficial. And it does feel like she's a horse that can get better forward position, even from an outside post in this race.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I hadn't really considered the distance part of it. I did expect her to be forward in this race and maybe get the good trip. But that's a good point that you bring up there. Maybe shorter distances will ultimately just be better for her. I don't really know what to do with her, David. I mean, she's another one. She's 20-1 on the line. And I know that her good race gives her a chance in here. So I just don't want to knock her. I've never really liked this horse. Her regret that you pointed out where she did run well, close to a fast pace. I personally thought she got too much credit for that race. I didn't think that she ran some kind of superior race there. I just thought that she ran okay. And I don't really like anything she's done since then. But listen, maybe you're right. Maybe turning back to the mile is what she really wants.
The number 12, Mayday Ready, is another horse looking to get back on track in here because we showed that replay earlier where she beat Play with Fire, the morning line favorite. She wired a field on the front end in the Lake Placid, but she came back in the Winter Memories last time at Aqueduct, Mike, and it's just a very strange race from her as the even money favorite. It looked like they were not going to send her to the lead the way that they had 2 back in the Lake Placid. But once Frankie Dettori tried to rate her, it seemed like Mayday Ready had other plans herself as she just pulled him forward and she failed to settle early in that race, got really rank. And I went back to watch that Lake Placid again. I'm not even sure that Jose Ortiz really wanted the lead that day. She almost did the same thing where she pulled him forward to take the lead. And I don't love that attribute where it seems like she's not settling early in her races because you don't want to see a horse sort of come apart mentally at this stage of her career.
That's very true, especially one who was such a good 2-year-old, right? It just felt like they could ride her any way they wanted to, and she would show up and really run, and it just hasn't been the case so far this year. I mean, I guess there's a way to look at her and say that, I don't think I'm ready to say that she hasn't moved forward as a 3-year-old, but I'm starting to wonder, David. I mean, I don't know. She's got the 1 win this year, the Lake Placid. It's basically a race that they handed to her on the lead with everybody rating and just letting her walk up front on a really slow pace. Her other 2 races, I don't think I'd say they're terrible, but they're not great.
Let's go to our picks for this Friday race of the day, the Grade 2 Valley View. And Mike, I see you're going to land on that morning line favorite, the number 2, Play With Fire. I'm curious to know, what would you consider to be a fair price on her in this field? Because it does seem competitive, and she probably is the horse to beat.
Twice her morning line price to me would be a fair price. I don't think I'm going to get it, but I think she's better than she looks on paper. And ultimately, David, I've always liked her anyway, and I just couldn't get to anybody else in this race. I tried hard to make cases for just about everybody else, could not do it. I chalked it out. I'm probably not betting this horse.
Between the two favorites, I do slightly prefer Classic Q. We'll see what kind of pace setup she gets. I did put the number 11 totally justified on top, assuming she is going to be some kind of huge price in this race. And I imagine she will get ignored here based on her recent form. Just feel like she deserves one more chance turning back. And she does go out for a trainer, Rusty Arnold, who has a positive ROI with all starters at Keeneland over the past 5 years, does target this meet. 11,629 for me and 2,698 for Mike in the Grade 2 Valley View, the DRF Friday race of the day. Good luck if you're playing the races later this week.